So I was wrong. I'm happy to admit it. I hold my hands up. Well, we've just had the first race of the new Gen 3 EVO car, and I was very critical of it going into the end of last season. And I must admit, after watching that first race, I'll admit I was wrong. I hold my hands up. Actually, the Gen 3 EVO car has been a massive step forward in Formula E. So we actually got to see the use of the four-wheel drive system. Although it's always been there in the background, this was the first time we got to see it be used in the race. And oh my goodness, did it change things about. It's clear now that actually with the four-wheel drive system and the boost, nobody is able to be caught. It's pure and simple. Once you have that activated, you can pretty much march your way up the field. And let's be honest, what other racing series can you think of where someone who qualified last actually goes on to win the race? It's completely unheard of. You don't really see that very often. Now, I think that's real testimony to the sport and actually how dynamic it actually is and how quickly it can change about. All right, yes, we did have a few red flags, which may have gone into Mitch Evans' hands, but let's be honest about it. It was a fantastic thing to see. And anyone that says that Formula E isn't fast, well, I beg to differ. Now, let's not forget there were a few teething issues on the day, notably the Nissan powertrain being stifled by some sort of overpower issue. Now, we don't know if this is similar to what happened last year when basically as soon as the cars lost traction, i.e. their wheels left the ground, you'd get that energy spike. However, given the fact that all four cars using the Nissan powertrain suffered from the same thing and ultimately all received drive-through penalties, I think it's clear to say that that's not what's happened here, and I think there's a problem in the inverter somewhere. It's quite possible there's too much current is being carried somewhere. Now, having said that, the drive-through penalties, I was always very critical of them in the fact that they never really provided the driver the ability to try and work his way back up through the field. Now, with the introduction of the Gen 3 EVO car, that is now actually a real possibility. So even having a drive-through penalty now doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to win the race. It just means you've got to work that much bit harder to try and get back up the pecking order, which, to be fair, I think is actually a really good thing for the sport. The other major thing is the front wings. Let's be honest, that was the big major issue from last season. How many times do we see wings come off and be lodged under cars and races have to be safety carred or yellow flagged or even red flagged because of incidents? The new front wing is so much better than the old one, and I must say that's probably one of the biggest changes that I think is really going to make things a lot easier. The amount of times we see some shunts that normally would have seen cars going off really was good to see. Just means we can keep that close quarter street racing that we all love to watch. Now, ultimately, we did have one issue on the day with battery, and unfortunately, that was the Andretti car. And, you know, unfortunately for Jake Dennis, that meant an early retirement for him. But it does go back to this issue that we've had with these batteries. Now, obviously, for the Gen 4 car, we know we're moving away from the cell-type batteries over to the pouch-style batteries. So perhaps maybe the reliability in that aspect might be improved. However, having said that, this is the first time we've seen it actually happen on track for some years. And I think the incident that happened in Valencia a couple of years ago is really what's still lodged in people's mind, and that big fear of a massive fire. Ultimately, it was a fantastic start to the season, and you know what? It kept me on the edge of my seat, and I really enjoyed it. Some of the best racing I think I've seen in Formula E so far. You know what? And if this is the start of the season, I can't wait for it to go further. But it'd be interesting to see, now we've actually had some real world driving, how the team strategists actually plan to use their attack modes, because really the attack mode is now the key thing going forward in Formula E. That is the main thing going forward, and how they strategize and use that. So that's what we're really going to see. And I think with the introduction of, hopefully, the rapid recharge, that's just going to add another level of complexity to it and really switch up those double header weekends. So you know what? Fantastic start to the season, and I can't wait for more.